In this age of new normal, online is not your only option. Because new normal means new learning modalities and new learning possibilities. Let Vibal make learning offline possible with Smart Class. Smart Class contains pre-made daily modules sequenced according to DepEd's budgeted teaching and learning calendar. Each module has a specific lesson duration and has day markers to guide parents and teachers in the asynchronous learning of learners. Inside the modules available in Smart Class, you will find the following elements. First, learning competencies are identified in the module openers. Kickstarters are available to test students' prior knowledge on the subject matter. This set of activities, found at the beginning of each lesson, may also serve as motivational activities. Parents of preschool to grade 2 students will also find notes to parents which contain tips and pointers on how they can guide their child while learning at home. Redefine your students' learning experience with the integration of augmented reality technology into images and illustrations available in Smart Class, making learning more interactive and exciting. At the end of each module, Long Quiz is also available to assess students' understanding of the lesson. Smart Class also features Wrap Up, a lesson ender activity that applies the constructivism theory of learning. In Wrap Up, students are expected to summarize the lesson on their own using a graphic organizer. You may also evaluate the quality of your students' learning by letting them practice their learning in real life through GRASP's formatted performance tasks. The content of Smart Class is designed for the entire academic year, and it is available for 5 major subjects. all aligned with DepEd's K-12 curriculum and covers the most essential learning competencies prescribed by DepEd. Secure your own copy of SmartClass before classes open. Contact marketing at debagroup.com to know more.
Good day, Kabibal, and welcome to our Learning Intervention webinar series. For the discussion this afternoon, our topic will be intervention activities for students with writing difficulties. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. You may visit certificate.bibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your question in the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our BAL webinars. Experience learning, Kabibal. And now, to proceed with our webinar this afternoon, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker. Our speaker for this afternoon is a consultant evaluator of K-12 Philippine Basic Education Curriculum and academic consultant for Sisters of Mary Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brother Roderick M. Aguirre.
Good afternoon, viewers. Once again, we are here to continue on our discussion about intervention so that we can help our students become better, not just with academics, but all other skills that will help them become lifelong learners. And this afternoon, we'll be focusing more on the writing difficulties of our students, how we can come up with creative activities that would surely help our students with their writing difficulties. Yesterday, I talked about, actually last night, I discussed about handwriting or fine motor skills development towards writing and handwriting per se. That would be one of the difficulties or reasons why our students would have difficulties with writing. And we're gonna continue with that today. And it's September 1 and it's the start of the burn months. And I think you're already feeling the cool breeze, although here in Cavite it's not yet cold. It's still, it's still hot and warm around, but there's nothing to be sad about this weather, and we need to be thankful of everything that we have, regardless of what we experience. God is always with us. And to share with you our topic for this afternoon, I have prepared for you a rather elegant presentation for you. And let me share this to you. There you go. So our topic for this afternoon is a continuation of my discussion last night about writing. It's all about, this week is all about learning interventions and how we can help our students overcome some of their identified difficulties. And I believe that one of the many difficulties that our students are encountering in the learning process would be writing. And yesterday we talked about handwriting, and now we're going to focus more on the writing difficulties of our students. And what we can do is come up with creative ways to help students accomplish writing tasks. One of the many reasons why our students do not like writing as an activity or academic activity or just a personal activity, it's because they see it as a very mundane activity, something that they do not enjoy doing. And that's why one of the many intervention activities I would suggest later on would be, creative ways that would help our students, become better writers. If not better writers, at least, to entice them to start writing. And the benefits of writing are tremendous. All right. So this will be our outline for this afternoon. I'm really excited with. I added a new element for this September, and you'll find out my additional element from my discussion. So I will start with the introduction, identifying and busting myths about writing, composing, and composing difficulties. So instead of having 5 or more myths, I just chose 2 to 3 most common myths about the topic that I'm about to discuss. And then I will now present, anecdotal records, samples of anecdotal records that would situate our discussion discussion of the topic. So I'll call it situation analysis, where we're going to contextualize our discussion through a simple anecdotal record. All right. And then we'll have discussion again. My way of discussing the concepts and the nature of my topic would be question answer. This is one of my strategies when I do write. I always do QA strategy, question answer strategy. It gives me more purpose and more clarity in what to research. Okay, so discussion will be focusing on understanding ways how teachers and parents can provide intervention to students' writing and composing difficulties. All right. And then we'll have an open forum. So if you have questions along the way and concepts that you would like to be clearly re-explained because they are so vague at the moment. So do not hesitate to key in your comments and your clarifications and questions on the comments box below. All right. And then I'll have my conclusions and implications as to how we can help our students, overcome their writing and composing difficulties. Let us begin with introduction. This is one of the most interesting one of the most interesting parts of my presentation is, looking for myths that are commonly shared by a lot of individuals, both teachers and parents alike. So let us begin. Myth number one, all right? A lot of people believe that everything, teachers' perspective, that everything my students write has to be graded. A lot of teachers and even parents believe that all written outputs of students should be graded. I disagree, all right? And this is a myth. That's why we're gonna bust this. If our students will have this idea that all written outputs are all graded, and they will have this generalization that writing is only for a particular, writing is only a task in order to gain certain grades, not something that we're gonna do personally or something that we recreationally do. So we need to teach our students that writing is part and parcel of academics and part of our personal growth as well. Making some diaries, reflective journals, even for writing on your Facebook account, your shout outs, these are form of writing. So we would like our students to realize that writing is not only an academic demand, but also a day-to-day activity that they need to accomplish. And therefore, they must realize that writing is a necessity in a society like ours, and therefore they must learn to be good at it. All right. So not all, we should, as teachers and parents, we must teach our students that not all written outputs are to be graded. And you know that, especially for formative assessment. Okay, so we encourage our students because it's good for them. Next myth is, all right, I need a script to teach writing. So a lot of teachers out there believe that they are not comfortable teaching writing to students. And in fact, if listening is one of the most neglected skill in all academic setting, writing will be second to that. All right, a lot of teachers require a lot of writing activities from students, and yet few teachers would give time to students to teach them how to write, not just in English or Filipino or language subjects, but basically in all subject areas. There's not one teacher out there of a particular subject area would not demand from students to do some written outputs. Agree? Right. And on that note, if we demand something, that's basically what the principles of teaching and learning. If we demand something from our students, therefore we need to teach that skill, so that whatever we demand from them, we know we will not be frustrated because we know that we taught them that skill. Therefore, you don't need a script to teach writing. It must be situated on what you want your students to write. So if you want your students to take down notes, then teach them how is note taking done. If you want your students to summarize, then teach how summarizing is done. If you want your students to make an outline, then teach them how to. So whatever you want, you demand from your students. You don't need a script on it, otherwise it would come out unnatural. But you just come out Anything that you demand from students as an output, that's when you teach that, right? So that's a myth. Now for the last myth, teachers don't need to be writers. Unfortunately, that's why writing is difficult to teach and teach to students, because few teachers engage in writing. All right. I know that a lot of teachers do a lot of lesson planning, but it's a different type of writing as the right of writing that we demand from our students. We cannot demand from our students to do a lesson plan, right? What we ask them is to do like a summary, make an outline, make an article, make an argumentative essay, do written outputs, written reports, and all of those. So we, as teachers, when we again demand from our students, we make sure that anything that we demand from our students are things that we can do, because it will be like we are charlatans. We are preaching, something that we do not actually do. So this is a myth. I believe to be a good teacher to teach students writing is that you have engaged yourself in this writing activities. Good. Let's now proceed to my new element in my discussion for September. It's situation analysis. Situation analysis. I provide you with sample anecdotal records on writing, and it will find out what is the problem of the student. Let's have this. So we have 3 observations of 2 students, and the activity for observation 1 would be writer's workshop. So everything has a writer workshop. The teacher here requires students to at least 5 minutes of their time every day to write something, like summarizing the lessons or writing about the topic they just discussed. So let's have student 1. Student 1 in observation 1 drops pencil and book on floor, looks at the child sitting next to him, looks at his neighbor's paper, shakes pencil. Let me show you that. Shakes pencil. All right, I have a pencil here. All right, that's like this. Drops a pencil on the floor, then looks at the child sitting next to him, looks at his neighbor's paper, and shakes the pencil and turns the pencil around in hand. Or like this. All right, like that. All right. Observation 2 on the next writer's activity. Sticks pencil through notebook rings. I don't have a notebook ring. And closes writing journal during lessons. Slouches in seat, places it on desk. All right. Observation 3, erases a blank notebook page. There's nothing written on the notebook, and yet keeps on erasing something, pretending that he wrote something. Gets up to sharpen pencil, even if it wasn't used. Tells teacher that he needs his medicine, like, I think a headache and all. Does not write anything by the end of the lesson. Okay, based on this behavioral observations from student 1, we would understand that a child has not embarked on writing any writing activity at all. Why? What's the problem? The child has a problem in focusing on the activity. So if our students cannot write, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have writing problems. It could be they have pre-writing deficits or difficulties, and one of which would be focusing attention. A lot of students who have problems with focusing their attention would definitely have difficulty having difficulty focusing on the writing activities, especially that writing is a very demanding activity. It requires, the total focus of the student. And if the students like this, these are manifestations of students having difficulty with attention. So how are we supposed to deal with this? Then we identify, if we are able to identify the problem of the student's attention deficit, or not attention deficit, but focusing attention, then we can probably ask the child about his or her interest. There's a possibility that the topics that we're providing them is not within the field of interest of the student. So we may want, if we want our students to engage in writing, we may want to make sure that the topics that we provide them are within the field of interest of the student. So that could be one of the reasons. So baka sabi mo na, ay talagang non-writer yan, mahina talaga yung batang yan. Baka naman hindi lang very interesting ang topic na binigay po natin. Alright? Huwag po natin agad sisihin ng bata, huwag po natin agad sabihin na ang bata agad ang may kasalanan. There's a possibility that we poorly prepared for the writing activity. One of those would be we need to have a profile of our students in terms of their interests so that the topics that we come up with for the writing activity would be within the interest of our students, at least within the interest of our students. Right? Let's have student number 2. On observation 1, writes constantly through the writing time. Wow, has a focus. Twirls pencils and fingers, stares at the overhead for 20 seconds. All right, closes writing journal before end of lesson. So the problem, let's proceed. Let's have an analysis later on. Stares at the teacher as she gives direction. Wow. Places head on desk. Sits up straight in her chair. Turns bookmark around in her hands. And then observation 3, places head on desk again, pulls out her award card, which is placed on her desk in a pocket, flips through pages of the notebook, draws curved lines in notebook. Okay, definitely student number 2 has no problem with focusing. In fact, she's able to focus on the activity, only that it doesn't last long. All right. I think here the problem is the student has difficulty starting the first sentence. He cannot or she cannot put into words the ideas in his or her head. So there's a possibility of a language barrier for lack of vocabulary or a structure, a mental structure for the student to be able to start writing. Because once a student starts writing, the mental will start. It will continue on. But the difficult part there is that even if a student has already paid attention to the task, if we have not provided our students with a starting point in the writing activity, then it's still nothing. All right. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, since writing is a skill, it has a lot of extrinsic motivation to help our students start writing. Okay, and that's what we're going to focus this afternoon. All right, so discussion, let's now understand ways how teachers and parents can provide intervention to students' writing and composing difficulties. All right, so first question, what is intervention? Let me graphically present to you my answer to this question. All right, so intervention is understanding where our students at right now. So let's just situate it to writing. Say the current mindset and behavior of a particular student is he has difficulty with writing, all right? And that means he has not accomplished any writing output at all. Hates writing, all right? And does not want to communicate through writing. What we want the child to become would be the target mindset and behavior. Remember, we cannot change our students' behavior if we do not change their mindset towards the activity. If they hate writing, no matter how we provide with too many opportunities for writing, and since they don't like it, they're not engaged and they will not like it. So what we want is to start changing their mindset. On this note, you may want to review my previous webinar, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, when I talked about mindsets. You may want to review that, okay? So our target mindset would be to help our students start writing, to love writing, and to start communicating through writing, to see that writing is also important because it's a way of communicating to other people. Now, say, a good example would be if you cannot say I love you orally to your parents, you can write your parents thank you letters, or give them a card that you wrote something like you love them and appreciate them for everything they've done for you. So a lot of these things would be beneficial for our students if they realize the power of written communication. On that note, well, the gap between the current state of our students and what we want them to become on a particular skill or a particular behavior, we need to identify the behavior and we need to identify what mindset hinders them to behave as such. That's what we call as intervention. That gap, okay? We cannot intervene if we have not specifically identified a specific problem. I know that writing is a huge idea. Later on, we're going to identify all those specific mindset, specific hindrances that cause students to have difficulty in writing. All right. So what we can do here is come up with an educational program. All right. I would suggest very creative. And when I say educational program, I think it is very important that we provide a time for writing. If yesterday I said that we need to provide the young learners with time for handwriting, it is also important that we provide them hand in hand with handwriting is a writing time. 10 to 15 minutes will be enough every day. All right. Next, supported policies. Supported policies meaning like, can we come up with, can we come up with policies that allow students freedom to write about their thoughts and their feelings instead of, um, a lot of students would like to write something about what they feel about some teachers, about some personnel or some classmates. It's just they fear that they will be misunderstood. So if there are policies that would allow students to write their feelings, like a word wall or a note wall or a freedom wall, allowing them to express their ideas through writing and not be bullied or be pursued or persecuted of the things that they write, then I think that will encourage them to write. So instead of having painting on the walls on all like vandalism and all. So we may want to look into the perspective of supporting the writing activities of our students by that. How can we do that at home? Like supportive policies, we may want to have a freedom wall at home, like stick on notes, pads, reminders, and all. So that would, definitely, or probably pictures with words, pictures like decorations that have words as well. That would definitely encourage our students to write something. All right. And finally, we have improvements in the learning environment. A lot of support from the adults to writing. Again, our students will not engage in writing if they see the adults and surrounding them not writing. Therefore, if teachers demand writing activities from our students, therefore teachers must also engage in writing. In like manner, our parents must do so as well, because uh, like any other skill, modeling is one of the most effective way to teach our students a certain skill. And since writing is set skill that they need to acquire, and therefore it is very important that they observe our adults, our teachers, and our parents, and even their adult siblings engaging in writing. Alas, I think few families in the Philippines do engage in writing. Okay, in our house, lahat ako inuwi ko yung mga bond papers na ginamit, no, na may mga mali kasi may editing kami, mga mali, kasi yung likod pa rin gamitin pa. So yun, dinadala namin sa bahay yun so that the kids would have papers to write on instead of buying lots of paper. So we use, we reuse paper. So this is kind of improving the learning environment, encouraging. So an environment that encourages our learners to write something. Stick on pads is very nice too. I have a lot of stick on pads. All right. Via these intervention programs, we can probably influence now the knowledge of our students and attitudes, very important, and belief and the skills of our students. I would rather suggest that one of the many intervention programs that we provide for our students to be able to start writing is to spark their interest towards writing. Okay, and I could probably, share to you some things that I have done, especially for my Korean students who are learning English, and only for 2 weeks I was successful at making them, start writing in English, and they love doing it, right? So to summarize my answer to question number 1, what is intervention? So an intervention is a combination of program elements, okay, or strategies designed to produce mindset and behavior changes among individuals in order to achieve learning goals. Meaning you need, if students difficulty of writing is definitely because they hate it, then you'll have to start making them love it first. Okay? Not, alam mo, ayaw na nga nila magsulat, para magsulat, binugbog mo pa sila ng maraming activities. They wouldn't like it. All right? So, what common writing difficulties Find difficulties of students. Let's just enumerate some of the 7 common problems that students encounter in writing. These are some difficulties. That's number one. Number one would be graphomotor problem. These are the things that I discussed last night, the graphomotor problems. These are what we call as students who have problems with writing on very short passages because they have problems with, they do not know what words to use, they do not know yet spelling. They also have, they write exceptionally slow and with great effort because they were not taught the proper hand grip, the proper strokes. So this is what we call as graphomotor skills. How to write the letters, how to form the letters to form words, how to connect the words to form phrases and sentences. These are language elements that students must learn. No matter how we want our students to write using words, probably they can compose their thoughts and ideas on paper using pictures, but eventually what we want our students to be able to do is to use words and be able to compose using sentences and paragraphs and all towards, of course, higher form of writing. So if we did not teach our students the proper mechanics, that would be handwriting, spelling, uh, margins, of course, and capitalization. So that's not their fault. It's the fault of the teachers because we have not taught them the basics. All right, and mechanics is one of those basics that we need to teach our students, and that will be under graphomotor problems. So if our students have problems with graphomotor problems, you may want to go back to the topic that I discussed last night, and those are the things that you can help your kids and the students be able to overcome some of their graphomotor problems. Some of them would have used an awkward pencil grip because they were not taught the pencil grip. And again, this is one of the many problems that our students have, the handwriting deficit, because lots of parents and lots of teachers would just allow students to hold pencils without showing them how to do proper pencil and ball pen grip. All right. Lack of fluidity in cursive writing because again, hindi tinuro yung tamang pagkakasunod-sunod. Ang ginawa ng teacher ay tinuro agad ang cursive, konektado agad, and dapat ang ginawa pala ay letter by letter. And then letter, ang entry, exit, and then letter to letter, and then word to word. Hindi ginawa ang ginawa ng teacher ay gaya na lahat. Mayroon po tayo sinasabi na gradual release, okay, of responsibility. Or yet as Guman call it as GPU, gradual psychological unfolding. Find it hard to form letters because hindi nga tinuro ang tamang strokes. Yung counting, ito po ba ay ang papabuntis po ba ay baliktad, papasok o palabas, and so forth. The teachers is assumed. It has to be taught explicitly. So if our students have problems starting writing, they don't want to embark on writing because they have graphomotor problem, please go back to my topic last night, and those I provided some very specific activities that provide our students creatively. Creative activities that provide our students with graphomotor intervention activities. Another problem that may cause students to have difficulty with writing would be spatial ordering problem. This would be more now towards the standards of writing. You have poor use of lines of the paper. Hindi nila alam kung kailan mag-indent and so on and so forth. Naalala ko nung kami nag-aaral pa, ang ginagawa ng teachers namin na pino-fold yung mga dulo yung paper hanggang masanay kami. Dapat ginagawa po yung mga bata na kasi dapat meron sila. Alam mo ano yung indentions sa left, ano indentions sa right. I think it's right and left on your perspective. And then, ano ang indented na paragraph? So, dapat tinuturo din yan sa mga bata ngayon na I think hindi na masyado natuturo. Alright? There are papers that have margins already, but then again, it would not teach our students. It must be marginal lines. Is dapat hindi nyo nakikita lines. It's the brain that sees the lines. Okay? Next, organizational problems. Hindi alam ng bata kung ano ang uunahin isulat, ano ang susunod. Ibig sabihin, ang dami niyang gusto isulat dahil hindi niya alam kung anong uunahin niya. So that means the child has not been able to come up with a proper way of organizing the ideas in his or her brain. So kasalanan ng bata yun. Kasalanan po yan ng ng mga teachers at ng mga adults dahil hindi tinuruan na mag-organize ng ideas. Paano pa mag-organize ng ideas? Please go back to my topic on last week on helping our students be able to on memory enhancement. We need to help our students start talking. For students to be able to write their ideas properly is when they are able to talk about it. And while they're talking about the ideas, they're able to refine the organization of the ideas. So ang bata na hindi nyo masyadong kinakausap, mahirap yan magsulat kasi ang gulo pa ng utak niya. Pero pag napag-usapan na yung mga topics na yun, it will be easy for them to talk to write about it. Next, uneven spacing between letters. Ito yung mga bata, hindi niya alam, merong mga space na mas malaki, maikli, dahil hindi natutunan yun. Alright? So, dapat maturuan natin ang mga bata kung ano mga spacing natin. And it starts very young age. Okay? And finally, many misspelled words because hindi tinuro sa mga bata ang mga spelling rules. May mga spelling rules po sa Filipino, may spelling rules sa mother tongue, may spelling rules po sa English. So, all of these are not assume that students will learn to do. It must be taught explicitly our students. During our time, sorry, pasensya po, puro ako sinasabi pa naman ko. Nung panahon namin, we had this spelling day na before we start our language lessons, our teacher will give us words. These words were the words that were taught the whole week. So usually, spelling words quiz would be on a Friday. So yeah, that's may mga patterns po yan. Okay. Another cause of difficulty for our students with writing would be number 3, attention problem. Ito na pinasasabi ko. Okay, tinuro mo ng handwriting, tinuro mo ng mechanics, spelling, capitalization, and all. The problem is attention ulit ng bata. Okay, so no matter how we taught our students the basics, the mechanics of writing, and yet they have problems with focusing their attention, then they will still have difficulty with writing. One of those manifestations would be difficulty getting started on writing assignments. Ito yung nakatingin lang, nakagano lang siya, tapos nakanganga lang siya. Pero tinuro mo siya ng tamang hand grip, tinuro mo siya. So it's not enough. Even if they have been taught the graphophonic relationships, you have taught your students spatial organizational order, hindi pa rin. Kasi nga dapat may focus po ang mga bata. Alright? Now, how do we help our students have focus? I'll give you an example later on though. Next would be easily distractibility during writing tasks. Yung madalis siyang lumabas. Kasi ang bata na talagang may focus, tinatapos niya talaga. Tapos, nagagalit yan pag siya ay nadidistract. Ano ba? Mawawala na sa utak ko. Right? So, yan ang bata na nagkaroon ng focus. So, students, no matter how they've been taught well the mechanics, still, if the attention and focus are not there, or is not there in the activity, writing will still be difficult for them. Next would be mental fatigue or tiredness while writing. Okay, dahil nga they don't know how to organize their thoughts. Next, inconsistent legibility in writing, minsan maganda. Dahil na sobrang sila sa focus sa kagandahan ng sulat. Pag meron na silang nasulat ng mali na hindi maganda, nawawala na silang gana doon po. Yan, pangit ng sulat ko, yung unang magsulat, mga ganyan mga manifestations. So in fact, ang focus lang nila is on the mechanics but not actually on putting their ideas, their emotions, and feelings onto paper, on paper. Next would be uneven writing tempo. Ito minsan mabilis, minsan babagal, biglang wala na lang bigla. All right? And the next, many careless errors. Ito kasama po din mga spellings, words that are not being used, the use of punctuation marks are wrong too. We call them as errors because tinuruan mo na nga sila, pero hindi pa rin niya maalala kung anong tama, kung paano gamitin. Well, I think attention problem would be based on lack of writing opportunities. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila makapag-focus sa writing dahil konti lang talaga ang opportunity for them to write. If they have been bombarded at a very young age with writing activities, writing would be easy for them. It's easy for them to focus on it. Okay? Next would be poorly planned papers and reports. Makikita mo na ang ginawa ng mga bata dito, copy and paste lang. Hindi talaga pinag-isipan. Hindi ibig sabihin ng bata ko ay wala po siyang mechanics. Ang masasabi ko lang po dito, ang bata ay wala talagang attention. They don't see the importance of writing. They only see that writing is a way for them to be able to gain better grades in the subject area. And how they get it would be, the easy way out. Copy and paste. Since there's now the internet, mas madali mag-copy and paste. Right? Fourth difficulty that students have that encounter in writing would be sequential ordering problem. Uh, Almost the same po yan sa ating spatial, only that ang sequential po natin is now higher because it utilizes language. Ito yung sinasabi natin, poor letter formation. Like, they do not know. Minsan nag-cursive, minsan naging manuscript, so hindi natin alam. One of the reasons of sequential ordering problem is consistency of the exposure to the writing system or handwriting system. Ibig sabihin, ang bata na sa grade 4, dumaan sa grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 teacher na iba-iba ang sulat kamay. Kaya pagdating sa grade 4, ang kanyang sulat kamay ay hindi niya maintindihan, pati siya hindi niya maintindihan sulat kamay niya. And because nga, walang consistency ang kanyang exposure sa kanya ng handwriting. So it will come out to sequential ordering problem. Next, transposed letters and spelling omissions. Ito yung isang word, wala siyang pakialam kung hindi niya nasulat yung R, hindi niya, yung L naging I. So hindi inisip na pag nagkamali lang siya ng sulat ng isang letter, mag-iba na ang letter na yon. Okay? O mag-iba na yung word na yon. Kung iba yung word na yon, iba na pagkakaintindi ng whole sentence na yon. Alright? Next would be poor narrative sequencing. Hindi maayos ang pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga events. Tapos parang in the middle of pagsusulat na, by the way, I forgot something about that. So hindi na organize ang ideas. Alright? Hindi kasalanan ng bata yun dahil hindi nga naturo sa bata. Alright? Again, these were some of those that I encountered when I was teaching writing. I was like, nababasa ko dito kung paano kagulong mag-isip yung batang to. Kasi nga, hindi niya na-organize. I do believe that the sequential ordering problem of our students in writing emanated from poor teaching of writing in school. Right? And finally, lack of transitions. Hindi niya alam paggamit ng first, second, third, fourth, finally, or next, another, and so on and so forth. The transition devices. Now, if you want to know more about the transition devices, please go back to my topic on teaching reading comprehension of informational text across subject areas. Okay. Next, cause of difficulty of our students would be definitely memory problem. So one of the many manifestations of students having difficulty with writing would be poor vocabulary. They have problems with writing because they don't know what words would express their ideas. So ito po ay medyo pumapasok na po sa memory problem on vocabulary. They have difficulty accessing and retaining certain words in the language they're supposed to be writing on. So it is very important that our teachers out there would always have a consistent vocabulary instruction to our students across subject areas so that at least it would improve the memory of our students and to be able to recall vocabulary appropriate for the ideas they would like to write about. Next would be many misspelled words. The spelling of the words in the different subject area would now be different. Mayroong spelling system po ang Latin, Arabic, for science and mathematics. So baka pa hindi tinuturo sa mga bata yun. We could not assume that the language teachers will do this for you. You, content area teachers, must teach the language of the subject area. And a lot of technical words, especially you're requiring a lot of students to do technical writing and academic writing in your subject area. There will be words that they need to learn to be able to use these words in their written outputs in your subject areas. And finally, one of those manifestations with memory problem, kids have forgotten capitalization, do not know when to capitalize, although you have taught them that, but they have forgotten. They would say, like the word son, would this be capitalized or not? It depends on how I use it. Did I use it as a proper name or did I use it just a common name? So minsan hindi nila alam kung kailan ginagamit ang capitalization. Next, punctuation marks. Di alam kung a break of idea or stringing of ideas o ito po ba ay a continuation of ideas. So magulo. One, hindi nila kasalanan po. Hindi kasalanan ng mga bata. Hindi natin tinuruan ng mga bata ng punctuation marks. I tell you, that's one of the many problems of our students, knowing the meaning of punctuation marks. And I believe that a lot of teachers out there also have problems using punctuation marks. Kailan gagamitin ng colon? Kailan gagamitin ng semicolon? Kailan gagamitin ng comma as opposed to semicolon? Kailan gagamitin ang period? Kailan gagamitin ang exclamation point? And so on and so forth. Medyo hindi rin din klaro yan sa mga teachers. So I believe lots of students memory problems in writing, especially in punctuation marks, would also emanate from teachers not knowing how to, teachers have poor grasp or poor knowledge on the use of punctuation marks. And definitely grammatical errors like tenses, all right? Very important, tenses. And of course would be subject-verb agreement. Those are very common grammatical considerations in writing, just simple as grammatical subject-verb agreement and tenses, unity and tenses, and even unity and topic. These are some of the memory problems. Bakit po? Tinuturo dapat yan sa mga teachers. Now, it becomes a memory problem when students have been taught all of this in the language subject area and yet they still fail to apply that in writing. So what can we do? We guide our students, or we can provide them with a continuous effort to keep them be reminded of these mechanics. Next would be language problem. Definitely poor vocabulary, awkward phrasing and conventional grammar, inappropriate use of colloquial language, difficulty with sentence structure and word order, trouble reading back what is written, difficulty with word, sound, spelling, and meaning. Ibig sabihin po, hindi pa siya proficient sa language na ginagamit. Halimbawa, English nga, hindi pa siya proficient. Ako nga, I still have problems writing in Filipino because hindi ko alam kung kailan po ang salitang balbal, salitang and so on and so forth. I beg forgiveness to my Filipino teachers, but they definitely taught me how to speak in Filipino and read in Filipino. But then again, it's still difficult for me to write in Filipino. I'd rather write in English than in Filipino. Why? Because the language still is a problem to me. All right. Probably I will do something about that later on, but since my task is more of in English, so I still don't see the need to focus on Filipino right now. But I do believe that I will still also need to be proficient in Filipino. In like manner, our teachers need to be proficient in both Filipino and English, and therefore we can now guide our students to write in Filipino and English, the language demanded of them to use in the subject area. So pag math and science and writing, dapat English din po. All right. The last one would be higher cognition problem. So may problema na talaga ang bata sa processing. Ibig sabihin, hindi niya na alam kung ano ang importanteng informasyon, hindi importanteng informasyon. So it would emanate from one, trouble generating ideas or elaborating on them. Okay? Hindi niya talaga alam. Hindi niya alam kung paano siya hahanap ng informasyon para makapagsulat siya. Alright, next, difficulty developing and organizing ideas. Hindi niya alam kung paano magsimula, paano i-organize ang ideas niya. Alright, lack of opinion or sense of audience. Hindi niya alam kung para kanino susulat, para sa akin ba to? Or talagang wala siyang alam na ang kanyang sinusulat ay mayroong ba magbabasa. Alright, next, finally, difficulty with writing tasks require creativity and or critical thinking. Parang walang laman. Pag nagsulat tayo, parang walang laman. So, I think a lot of students have problems with this for high order cognition problem because of lack of schema. I believe that when we write, we need to teach our students research skills. So one of the many problems of high order cognition problem is that students are poor readers. Okay? Nagkakaroon sila ng hindi nila alam kung anong susulat nila dahil hindi nila nabasa o hindi pa sila nakapagbasa about the topic. So it's very important for us to be able to help our students with high order cognition problems. We need to provide them with research skills, and very simple research skills. That's what I'm gonna show you today. Now, let's now proceed to the last question of the afternoon. It's already, okay, it's almost 3 o'clock. I only have about 15 minutes, 30 minutes to go. So let's begin with strategy number 1. I call the strategy number 1 as based on research also is that when we want our students to learn to write and to love to write, let us link it to oral language. Ibig sabihin po, dapat malaman ng mga bata na ang sinusulat nila ay base yan sa kanilang pinag-uusapan at kanilang experiences. Alright? It will be difficult for them to write something, to start writing something that they have not explored orally. Alright? Even expert writers, when they write, they still, they think about the idea, they keep on thinking of the idea, and then they talk about it. Like in my case po, pag ako po ay nagsusulat ng article, if I'm writing like, not just an article, but a concept paper, I read a lot of, I keep on reading and reading and reading books and other articles. And then after reading that, I would, sit down, take down notes. And while I'm doing notes, I would be talking to myself. I call it as talking aloud, okay? Talking aloud. And by talking aloud, it refines my thoughts. And once I refine my thoughts, parang mali yata ako doon. So, nare-refine. Kasi pag sinusulat mo, hindi pa na-refine ng ideas mo sa utak mo, mahirap pagsulat. All right? So, the strategy that I utilize for my students to start writing, to be able to help them to link it to oral language, is the language experience approach. Okay? I know a lot of language teachers out there, and a lot of academic teachers out there have already been using language experience approach. So please do not spoil my fun by sharing this strategy to them. This is one of the strategies I've been using for my writing classes. Language experience approach integrates speaking and listening, reading and writing through development on first-hand experiences. So how do we use this approach to enable our students to effectively write? So what we want our students to do is to effective written expression. Teaching should emphasize the link between oral and written language. It's more of expressing ideas, expressing experiences, expression. So we write to express our feelings, to express our previous experiences. So one thing that we need to provide our students with would be experience. What you do as a teacher is to select a shared experience like everyday happening, like, okay, let's talk about, say, kung mathematics po ito, sabi niyo, okay, so our word problem today is all about, we'll focus on discounts. So, nasa mall tayo. So, kunwari po, lahat ng mga bata makaka-relate, ay, oo. So, tell me, what do you do in the mall? Okay, when you enter the mall, what do you usually do? So, sa experience na to, ang ginagawa ng teacher is nag-iisip siya ng topic na maaaring experience ng mga bata. So, do not ask questions, do not provide them with an experience na hindi naman shared sa hindi naman necessarily lahat. Okay, kasi pwede na po siya maging vicarious experience ng mga bata. So, majority of the students have experienced it. Kasi otherwise, pag hindi nila experience, they will not be able to talk about it. And if they're not able to talk about it, they cannot come up with sentences to write something about not experience. All right? So think of very simple experience. Yung pagluluto, paglalaba, paggising sa umaga, pag-toothbrush, very simple activity that students have been doing every day of their lives. And let's use this as a shared experience for them to start talking. Hindi mo na magsusulata, they need to talk about it. That's why once you have selected the shared experience, actually hindi ka lang magsiselect noon. Dapat ang mga bata mag-iisip din. So pwedeng ikaw ang nagbigay, pwede rin naman na mga bata ang magsasabi sa'yo. So mas maganda pag galing sa bata dahil mas galing talaga sa experience nila. But then again, since you're still teaching the approach to your students, you may want to start the shared experience with the idea that you came up with. Ikaw muna magbigay. Now, next to experience would be oral language. Support the students to recreate the experience oral by asking questions. Asking questions. So what happened? So when you wake up in the morning, what do you usually do? All right? Sabi ng mga bata, okay, you ask students, what do you usually do? Ma'am, ako po, nagigising po ako. Oh, so you wake up in the morning. So how do you wake up in the morning? So kahit magsalita ang bata in a language that they're comfortable with, gamitin mo pa rin. Oh, so you wake up in the morning, early in the morning. So I'm asking the question, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? Teacher, ano po, babangon po ako tapos aayusin ko pa panaghigaan ko. Oh, so you wake up and you make your bed. Okay, could you please tell that? Could you please say that in English the way I said it? So, binibigyan mo sila ng model, something that they can talk about. Ibig sabihin, there's a possibility that students are not able to write their ideas because for lack of English words to express their ideas. In like manner, pwede rin po for lack of words in Filipino. Kung Filipino naman ang activity nila. Kagaya kung may problema talaga sa Filipino nun. So you can facilitate the oral exchange among students via questions. And then the questions will be guides for them at paano mo organize yung ideas. All right? So pwedeng gawin po ni teacher modeling po, lahat ng sinasabi ng bata isusulat niya sa blackboard. Susulat niya sa blackboard or kung nasanay na mga bata na sinusulat sa blackboard, ang gagawin mo po ay sila na mga bata na, okay, could you write down that experience on your notebook? And so, right. So mag-exchange na sila. So sinulat ni teacher. So the writing down is act as a model. The teacher na acts as a model, demonstrating how thought and words can be represented in writing as students dictate their ideas. Meaning, kahit pa in orally said, posible pag sinulat naman po ay iba ang pagkakasulat dahil nga may sinusunod na grammar. Halimbawa, I make my bed when I wake up in the morning. So when I wake up in the morning, I immediately make my bed. Right? I fold my pillows. I arrange my pillows properly and then fold my blankets and all. Mga ganun. So pwedeng sulat na yon. So pag sinulat ni teacher, naayos na siya. So nakikita ng bata, ganun pala in-organize ng kahit na nag-usapan namin, there's a way to organize my thoughts still. So pwede ko pala siyang i-represent in many sentences, hindi lang isang sentence. So natuturuan ng bata ng extension of ideas. Okay? Kaya lang nga, dahil nga hindi natin tinuturuan ng mga bata ng ganito, we're not using consistently language experience approach to model to our students how we talk about ideas and then how we refine it, hindi nila malalaman nga paano maayos sa utak nila. So again, hindi kasalanan ng bata kung bakit hindi nila ma-organize sa kanilang ideas sa pagsusulat dahil hindi nga natin minodel sa kanila. And I'm telling you now, language experience approach is a very good approach to help our students refine and manage ideas inside their head. Okay? And finally, reading. The opportunity to read them aloud creates a positive experience and reinforces their reciprocity between reading and writing. You will understand that when they write something, it is the idea that others will be able to understand. They write something about their experience. They do that because people will understand their experience. People will read their experiences. And by that, they will have feeling of success in doing that. Try it out, people. Language experience is very, very, very nice. Some teachers that I have taught language experiences use language experience approach as a way of wrapping up their lessons. So ginagamit na, okay, so what did we learn? So yung discussion ng mga teacher, discussion nila sa klase, ay yung ginagamit ng teacher na experience. Katatapos lang. So may pag-usapan talaga. And then tatanong ka siya, what did you learn about how to solve, how to add fractions. All right. So susulat ng teacher, okay, nakikita para maayos, para makita ng bata paano i-translate yung thoughts, oral language into written. Then pagkatapos na, okay, so meron na po tayo dito. Then what you do now, guys, you write your own, copy that and then write it down in one cohesive paragraph. And then I will call someone to read what they have written down. Very good. And then, okay, summarize what we have discussed today. I'll give you 10 minutes or 15 minutes to do that. Wait, magbigay ka ng 15 minutes. Tinuruan mo po kung paano gagawin ng mga bata. And then you get angry why your students are not able to do it because you did not teach them how. Again, we go back to the premise of teaching writing. If you demand whatever you demand from students for them to be able to write or any written output, we have the responsibility to teach them how it's done, right? Again, link it to oral language. Let them talk about it based on experience, shared experience, write it, sample how the sentences are done para makita nga nila, and then of course, let them share. I mean, mas may feeling kasi of success ang bata pag binabasa na nila, okay na ba? But do not focus more on grammatical slips. Pag may mga mali po ang bata, mga grammatical, take note of those grammatical slips and grammatical errors, and then that could be one of your areas to talk about the next day. Or kung hindi naman sa language subject, nasa math ka, nasa science ka, you may want to talk to English teacher or Filipino teacher na, ma'am, paki-review naman po yung tenses kasi mga bata po namin hindi po niya magamit yung tenses appropriately. Although tama na yung ideas, tama na yung content, yung kanyang grammatical knowledge naman or linguistic knowledge naman kanyang problema. Alright, so nagkakaroon na tuloy ng base concrete evidence for the language teachers to teach or reteach a language area or language focus because nakita nila na ito pala ang hindi matransfer ng bata sa other subject areas. If only our content area teachers communicate to our language area teachers on what language area our students have not fully grasped, then our students will bloom to become better writers, okay, and language users, both oral and written. Next, we have number 2, the strategy that I call is start with sentences. May mga bata na pinapasulat, may mga teachers na pinapasulat ng mga bata ng mga paragraphs na kung ang pinakamahirap dyan yung the first sentence. The most difficult in writing is to start the first sentence. So students need to be taught to write simple, grammatically correct sentences before learning to write compound, complex sentences. So ang strategy na ginamit ko dito ay picture talk. So for my students to be able to, yung layan medyo hayahayam na yun eh. Pero pag sa mga lower muna mo, lower grades, o mga estudyante na talagang ayaw magsulat, you may use this picture strategy. Start with, simple sentences. So initiates ideas and discussion about a specific topic or issue. So here are the steps. Show a picture. I call it the picture stage. Show a picture to the students and let them analyze it for a minute or two. So the picture must be, so if the writing activity is an add-on element in the academic activity of the students, then the picture could be linked to any subject area. But if the strategy picture talk is linked as part of the lesson, so dapat yung picture related to the lesson that they're discussing. They are discussing. Halimbawa, ito po ay all about environmental problems. So dapat ipapakita mong picture ay about environmental problems, right? So show a picture to the students and let them analyze for a minute or two, meaning quiet time. So sasabihin mo, okay, here's a pic. I'll show you a picture, but once I show you a picture, what I would like you to do is to analyze and scrutinize it. Talagang words ko na scrutinize. To analyze it, to observe what you see in the picture. I'll give you 1 minute or 2 minutes to analyze it. No, I want you to be quiet. Let your eyes do the task. After a minute or two, I'm going to give them talk. Facilitate student talk by asking them to ask them questions about what they think, feel, and how will they, sorry, they should be they, how will they respond to it? So observe that the picture talk does not require your students to immediately write. Mag-uusap-usap muna. Okay, so pwedeng gawin mo class as a whole class. Okay, so what did you observe? What do you see in the picture? So pwedeng magtawag sa mga bata. Then, what you can do perhaps is pwede naman gawin mo ay small group activity. Ayun sa picture, they're going to talk about that. The point there is that facilitate talking first before you ask them to write. Because as I've said, by talking about their ideas, they're able to organize and they're able to come up with a way how they're going to come up with an organization of the ideas that they have in their heads. Then after that, you can now ask them to do writing. After the student talk, let them write what they have orally shared through a structured or unstructured journal. Okay? Ibig sabihin, pwede meron kang open-ended sentences for them to start with so para makapagsulat sila. All right? And finally, the sharing. Allow students to share what they have written. It's very important for our students to be heard kasi dapat para ma-feel nila na ay may gamit pala ang sinusulat ko. Kasi may mga bata pong ginagawa nila, ay bahala, hindi ko gagawin to ng tama kasi alam ko namang hindi babasahin ng teacher namin. Ilan ba kami dito sa klase? 20, 40, 50, 100? Sa tingin mo, babasahin ng teacher namin? Naku, hindi. Minsan nga, ang nangyayari, nagkakabaliktad pa kami ng mga grado. Huwag naman po gano'n. Alright? So that's what I'm telling you. Not all writing activities should be graded. So kung gusto mo po ay para lang sila po ay matutong organize ng ideas nila. Again, writing is a very, very good activity for students to refine their thoughts. It helps them come up with good study habits. That's what I will be discussing tomorrow on Friday, and develops a more in-depth understanding of the topics they are learning. All right, I'll give you an example. Say our lesson in science is environmental issues. And I would like, ang pinag-usapan namin ay garbage disposal. All right? So, to ask my students to summarize what I discussed instead of asking questions. I would use picture talk for them to be able to write an abstraction of the lesson. I'll show you. I'll show them the picture, and then after 1 minute or two, then I will ask them questions to talk. Okay, in your small groups, mahilig po ako sa small group. In yours, I would like you to go to your small groups. I'll give you a minute or two again to talk about this, and these are your questions. Okay, take turns in answering the questions. Okay, what do you observe in the picture? I would like it to be more objective. What you see, like what garbage do you see, or what are the people behaving there? So be more objective. I don't know feelings yet. I don't want you to talk about, when you answer these questions, I don't want you to answer about what you feel. What I want you to do is what you concretely and factually see in the picture. All right, next. What do you feel about the picture? Once now you have identified objectively what you see in the picture, now I want you to share about what you feel about the picture. What do you feel about the garbage? What do you feel about the people in the picture, and so on and so forth. And then, what is the real problem shown in the picture? Okay. And then finally, what will you do to solve this or prevent this from happening ever again? Okay? So, pagkatapos ng 1 minute or two, so guided na. So, na may picture na, usap-usap na sila. So, ano gagawin mo ngayon? The writing. Individual. Remember, writing is always an individual activity. If the talk was a small group, they should be writing that. Now, to address the problem of our students that they don't know how to write, it's the difficult part of writing is writing the first sentence. Become structured. Transpose the questions to open-ended statements line. Number one, I observed in the picture that will be first paragraph. Second paragraph, after seeing the picture, I felt that. So madali, may masusulat sila kasi may napag-usapan sila. Mas madali nila isulat dahil napag-usapan na nila and na-refine na nila yung ideas nila. At na-improve yun dahil marami na nag-share ng mga ideas. Alright? Next, the real problem shown in the picture is third paragraph. And finally, the fourth paragraph will be, what will I do to solve this? What will I do to solve this or prevent this from happening again is, open-ended. All right. So you can probably give them time to write this. Medyo mabilis na magsulat sila ngayon dahil nga napag-usapan na nila. May mga magre-raise ng hand dyan yung ginawa ko to. May mga bata nagre-raise ng hand na, teacher, ano po sa English yung ganito? So again, there will be some students who will still struggle with vocabulary. Again, hindi nila kasalanan kasi kulang pa sila ng proficiency of the language. It's very important for us to have vocabulary instruction. Again, go back to the webinars of Vibal. Nagkaroon na po ng intervention, remediating vocabulary deficits. So you may want to go back to that training. Once they have done with writing, you may call for students. One student who will share the first paragraph I observed in the picture, student 2, student 3, and student 4. Just imagine you do this every time you end a module. Okay, or at the end, say a Friday activity, that would be nice. Our students will eventually become writers. And it addresses the idea that they have problems starting and focusing on the first sentence and how are they going to construct their first sentence and their paragraph. Very nice. And the strategy of writing here becomes more of an instruction for our students. Instead of the teacher talking a lot, binabalik natin sa mga bata. Good. Now, my third suggestion would be link it to reading comprehension. So, ibig sabihin, mas maganda po na ang mahiling po natin ang writing, hindi lang sa pinag-uusapan nila, hindi lang sa pictures na nakikita nila, hindi lang sa experience nila, kundi kung ano nabasa po nila. So, reading comprehension and written expression should be taught as reciprocal processes, meaning they write because they've read it. Okay? So, papasok po dito yung sinasabi natin na research skills ng mga bata. Alright? And I call this strategy, this is what I've been using since college. Okay? When I learned inquiry chart in college, it stuck with me. It got stuck with me. Actually, all of those strategies got stuck with me. At ito po yung mga strategies na ginagamit ko when I write. Okay? So the inquiry chart, okay, the inquiry chart or eye chart, as I call it, is a strategy that enables students to gather information about a topic from several sources. Ito din po yung strategy na tinuro ko sa mga module writers ng Sisters of Mary. It's just basically formulating questions. Okay, I'll show it to you in a while. Okay, why use an inquiry chart? These are the benefits though. It fosters critical thinking and strengthens reading skills, especially the research skills of students, and gives them more focus on what to research on. Hindi nabasa ng basa sa mga bata. Ang hirap naman kasi basa ako ng basa, hindi ko alam kung saan dito importante informasyon. Inquiry chart will solve that. It teaches younger students to generate meaningful questions about a topic and learn to organize their writing. Okay? So ang matutunan ng bata ang specific questions to a more general questions, or the first important questions to the least important questions, or merong organization na gano'n, from deductive, inductive way. Students build upon prior knowledge or thoughts about the topic by sharing interesting facts because they have read. Hindi na puro opinion na pag-usapan isusulat ng bata, hindi kung ano ang kanilang mga nabasa. And finally, it can serve as an evaluation tool for how much student has learned about a topic. Okay, let's have an example. Para sa akin, ito pa yung inquiry chart. So the inquiry chart usually has about 3 to 5 sources. Depende po sa grade level. Kung first time mong tinuturo sa mga bata ito, you can probably have just 1 source and then add on 2 sources, 3, 4, 5. Again, stick with the strategy hanggang mamaster ng bata hanggang 5 sources. Okay? This is a very good way for teaching students writing, essays, writing articles in math, science, araling panlipunan, and all other subjects. Inquiry chart is very effective. Okay, as a strategy for teaching students to have focus on writing. So ito po yung inquiry chart. So let's just have an example how I do it, how I use it. Say my topic on Friday, which is the last topic on my intervention on writing, would be now intervention activities for students with poor studies, so study habits. What I do here is that I dissect the topic. Okay, I dissect the topic into specific concepts. And that will be my questions there. And the questions that I formulate will be my base now exactly what to look for and what to read about. Hindi ginagawa natin na intervention activities for students for study habits. Ay, magbabasa ako about study habits. Habang binabasa mo yung libro na yun, aray, sakit ng ulo ko, ang dami kong binabasa, pero wala pa akong nasasagot. Wala pa akong nahahanap ng informasyon. It's because you did not formulate questions. The questions that you formulate in the eye chart will provide you with the purpose of what information you will be looking for. Ito yung sinasabi natin na pag kumuha ka ng mga materials, you're only skimming and scanning for information that will answer your questions. So these are the questions that I've formulated. So from the topic intervention activities for students with poor study habits, I think first, yung paggawa kasi ng questions would be ilalagay mo ang sarili mo sa perspective ng readers or listeners. Poor study habits. I think I need to know first, what's study habit? Ano ba yun? Kasi, paano ko alamin agad ang activities for student tayo? Hindi ko nga alam po anong study habits. So I need to know first, what is study habit? Makikita niyo po sa mga presentation ko po, question format. Kasi ginagamit ko po, pag nag-research ako sa topic ko, I chart. Okay? So, 5 sources pa ako palagi. Okay? And of course, I will not provide you with the articles. Nagpagurang kayo. So I'll provide you with my PowerPoint. Second question would be, what makes a study habit good? Kasi we're talking about poor study habits. I think I need to know first, ano ba ang magandang study habits? What makes a study habit good? Right? Next, what causes poor study habits? Anong mga causes kung bakit ako ang isang bata merong poor study habits? And finally, we'll have questions now. What are ways to help students develop good study habits? Okay, so these are the questions that I formulate for my topic. So pag nagbasa ako ng mga articles, nagbasa ako sa mga libro, hinahanap ko lang yung sagot dito. So I'm just skimming and scanning. Pag nahanap ko na yung mga sagot noon, kuha na ako agad, lagay sa source, and then annotate ko na. Alright? And then pagdating sa last part, kung lahat na nahanap kong sources na yun ay iba-ibang informasyon, I would present it differently. Pero kung sila po ay para-parehas, what I do now is merge the ideas. Papasok na po ito sinasabi natin na paraphrasing. Alright? Or creatively presenting the ideas. Like what I'm doing right now, I'm creatively presenting the ideas via graphics. It's no longer there, it's yours now. So, but nonetheless, you did graphical presentation paraphrasing. Right? I'll talk about that more tomorrow during the Facebook Live. Alright? So that's an example of, I'm sorry, but a lot of my students in writing showed a lot of progress in their writing activities, especially for some of my students who really poor writing activities with the eye chart. Nagsabi na, sir, ngayon alam ko na kung anong hahanapin ko kasi dati ang sakit sa ulo, ang dami man binabasa pero wala akong nasusulat. It's because hindi purposive ang paghahanap mo ng pagbabasa mo. So via the questions in the inquiry chart, you have now a purpose of what you're supposed to look for in your reading activities or what you're supposed to research on. The last suggestion strategy that I can provide you with that have, in my experience, have been, really good to my students would be link it to the purpose of writing. Okay. Students should be taught how to convey their intended meaning using tools such as language patterns, text structures, and grammar. Sometimes sa mga bata, kahit naglagay ng inquiry chart, hindi nila, pag sinulat na nila, nag-struggle pa rin sila, paano ko ba ito, ano, yung mga relationships na mga ni-research ko. Okay, so sunod-sunod kong tinuturo sa mga bata ay, okay, before you actually start writing, nakalagay na sa eye chart mo, tingnan mo ang relationships ng mga information or facts na nakuha mo. Alright? How do you do that? Use graphic organizers. Now, I already talked a lot about graphic presentations as a way of developing enhancing memory. You may want to go back to my session on that, but I'll give you a few examples of the graphic organizers that I created for writing. Okay, so these are learning tools for students of all ages to organize, clarify, or simplify complex information. They help They help students construct understanding through an exploration of the relationship between concepts. So how do you do that? Model. Wag mong sabi sa mga bata, gumawa ka ng graphic organizer, hindi mo ba napakita kung paano ginagawa? So you have, again, it's always emanate from teaching, explicit teaching. Do not demand from your students to make a graphic organizer, a graphic presentation of the ideas that they have researched, either using the eye chart or any strategy, without showing them how it's done, okay? So once you have modeled it to the students, let them practice doing it. So together with the students, use graphic organizer to write it. So I usually ask my students to do the practice by integrating this in their study habits. Okay, I'll talk about that during study habits, about how can we integrate the graphic organizers as a way of doing, of studying a lesson, getting information from chapters, and so on and so forth. That's when I discuss thoroughly on that. But here, it's where you ask students to practice, and I situate that on their everyday study time, okay? And then transfer. Let the students generate their own graphic organizers with their purpose for writing. So ngayon, dahil meron silang eye chart, titingnan nila ang mga relationship ng mga ideas, and then, since ang topic ko naman nakalagay doon ay ways how to intervene. So ang gagamitin niya ay mga enumeration description. First, second, third. Kaya tinan yung presentation ko may 1, 2, 3, 4. So malalaman ko, I'll just transpose that into word. First, link down. Second, and then I'll put graphic. I'll put the explanations down. And finally, edit. One thing about graphic organizer is that it facilitates editing of the content and language in the graphic organizer they generated. Titingnan nila kung tama yung content, yung information na nilagay dun sa writing, kasi nakikita mo na, nandito pala, ang graphic organizer niya parang blueprint ng content ng sinulat niya. Titingnan natin kung yung mga ni-research niya na nasa graphic organizer ay actually nakalagay sa kanyang sinulat. So, para siyang table of specifications in a way in writing. Alright? So, let me show you an example. Way back in 2014, yung mga, nilagay ko po yung aking, dinesign ko po ito para sa mga students for writing narratives, how to write narratives. Sabi ko, step 1, set up the story. So ito yung gagawin nila. Identify the setting, identify the characters, identify the catalyst, and activity 2. So may mga teachers po dyan, yung mga tinuruan ko po magsulat ng mga children's stories sa Bicol, other places in the Philippines. I know that pinakita ko po sa inyo to. Ito po yung mga ginawa ko po sa inyo. And then I'm so happy that in our 2 to 3 day session, marunong na kayo magsulat. And I was so happy that somehow graphic organizers are indeed very important in helping, writers become writers. Kasi it helps you come up with a good structure. Okay? Ito na siya. Sample lang po yan ha. Sample lang po. Now, if you want a copy of this, again, just, ask a copy of that. Another example ko po, if you want your students to write something about comparison contrast, you show them templates. Example would be point by point. Would you like to present your ideas via point by point pattern? So ito pa yung natin ng ating graphic organizer. So point 1, 1 comparison, 1 contrast, point 2 comparison and contrast, point 3, and so nalalagay lang po nila dito, ilalagay yung mga statements na yan. Then pagkatapos doon, pag nalagay ng statements, pa rin lang gumawa ng paragraph. So point 1, one paragraph, point 2, another paragraph, point 3, another paragraph, point 3, point 4, another paragraph, and then summarizing all point 1, 2, 3, 4 would be now the summarizing or concluding paragraph. All right, next would be all similarities and differences. We have, I do a mostly a table. So variables to be comparing and trust, enumerate those similarities and enumerate those differences. Now, all you have to do now is make one paragraph about similarities and make one paragraph out of differences. Put them together in one paragraph and you have a 2-paragraph composition of a particular topic. All right. Next, you have for my last template for comparison contrast would be advantages and disadvantages. So similar with similarities and differences. So what are those advantages and disadvantages? Limbawa, what advantages and disadvantages of using cell phones? Okay, of using cell phones. 2, advantages and disadvantages of using cell phones in classes. Okay, advantages, disadvantages. Ang mga kasulat ng mga bata. Of course, ang susulat niya dito yung mga ni-research niya. It's kind of like the eye. Yung nalagay niya dito, yung mga na-research niya sa eye chart niya. Okay? Next would be cost-effect template. Provide them with another templates here. 2 majors like all causes and effects. You have again, table lang po, sulat lahat ng causes, lahat ng effects. Or the student may choose to have one cause and several effects. Ganito po ang kanyang graphic organizer. So you have cause and then several effects. So yung cause and then effect 1, cause and effect 1 would be paragraph 1. Cause and effect 2 would be second paragraph. Cause effect 3, cause and effect 3 would be the third paragraph. And summarizing all of those would be now your concluding paragraphs. Next, you have one effect and several causes. Baliktad po kanina, one cause and several effects. Ngayon naman ay one effect, several causes. All right. So pwede mo sabihin dito na fire. Fire is caused by there are several causes of fire. Pwedeng define muna yung fire. So fire is the effect, and then causes would be gas frame siguro, candles, and faulty wirings, faulty electrical wirings. Ganyan. So gawan mo ng bawat ng isang paragraph and then expand on those ideas and examples. Then you have now 3 paragraphs. Next, have chain effect, cost leaders to an effect. Cause leads to an effect. This effect becomes a cause that leads to another effect, and so on. So ganyan. Mag-start ang kanyang paragraph ng cause leading to an effect, and then effect becomes a cause, and then effect again. So pag ganun siya. All right, becomes a chain effect. That this one pattern becomes one paragraph, then another pattern becomes another paragraph. So all in all, you have about 4 paragraphs. So pag binigyan mo ang bata ng way to organize what they have researched about using the graphic organizer, it will be easy for them to develop the paragraphs. Diba? So, mayroong structure. So, hindi na sila paano kaya yun? Kasi nga, hindi natin sila binigyan ng mga strategies. Okay? With that, thank you very much. And I'm now ready to answer some of your questions. It's now open forum time. So, Mitch, do I have questions from the people out there?
Yes, for Brother Ricky, we have some questions here from our viewers. The first one is from Miss Maria Cecilia Vasconcelio. With the advent of online distance learning, how will teachers be able to reach out to students with writing difficulties since visiting them at home is not allowed because of this pandemic?
Okay. Yan po sinasabi ko na kanina na dapat ang writing po ay kasama po sa ating part ng ating modules at part sa ating online. So at the end, pwede mong gawin natin po instead of summarizing the activity, we can come up with, summarizing the activity or abstraction through a written activity. Okay? So pwedeng gawin po ng mga bata ay do it online using Google Documents or Google Docs. Pwede po natin paggamit sa bata kung online po ito. Kung written naman po, yung sinasabi ko po na open-ended, yung may pinakita ko kanina sa talking pictures, you can probably start with pictures that prompts your students to write something about, and then isusulat nila doon sa kanilang journal. So journals can be done like probably once a week on a Friday, and then it will be submitted to you kung may magpipick up po sa bahay nila para makita mo if they're improving or not. Because via writing, you will be able to see if your students are improving or not. The point there is that you as teachers have integrated the writing activity both as a formative assessment and as a summative assessment in all of your lessons, be it modular, independent modular learning, or online. So dapat integrated siya sa pagtuturo natin. Ngayon, kung hindi naman po integrated, posible po magkaroon po ng add-on. Yung iba pong meron po kasing ibang mga private schools na meron po silang separate reading class and separate writing class. So, kung separate reading class or writing class, same pa rin po. Pwede pong siyang online. May sinasabi po natin ng mga Google Documents po na nakikita agad ng teacher. Pwedeng offline, pwedeng online po gamitin po. You may want to explore that too. So that's my suggestion to you for distance. Mas madali po nga po ngayon ituro ang writing kasi nga po magagawa ng bata in their own sweet time sa bahay nila. And then wag mo nang bugbugin masyado. Siguro once a week, tapos do it as a guided or structured writing muna. Especially if ngayong pandemic na to, alam natin na hindi natin nabigyan ng time ang mga bata na magsulat talaga in the previous years. Alam po natin na pag binigay po natin sa mga bata ngayon, mahirapan talaga sila. So I would suggest structured way, yung open-ended questions. Okay? So that medyo guided po magsusulat nila. Do it as a part of the lesson, be it either analysis of the lesson, or it could be an ending part of the lesson, which is part of the abstraction. Instead of ikaw po magsasalita or asking them questions, you let them write using a graphic organizer.
Thank you so much, Brother Ricky. Next question po is from Miss Maricar Dizon. May connection po ba ang pagiging non-reader ng mga bata sa kahusayan nila sa pagsusulat?
Okay, of course. Kasi nga, kung ang mga bata ay non-readers, meaning they probably have not mastered yet the graphophone. Kaya nang-explain pa niya isang problema po nila is the graphophonic relationships. Baka problema nila sa spelling, problema nila sa vocabulary, problema nila sa sentence structure is because they have not seen it in written form. So reading, students who have reading problems will definitely have problems with writing. That's why in one of my presentations here, yung reading and writing reciprocity, ibig sabihin para makita ng bata na importante magbasa, matutong magbasa dahil kailangan mo yan sa pagsusulat. So we need to emphasize that if our students have not yet learned to read, it's really difficult for them to write. But then again, we can connect what they are reading to what they are, we can connect the teaching of writing to reading. Ito sinasabi natin na mag-summarize, mag-outline after what they have read, structured tsaka unstructured. So definitely po, ang sagot ko po sa tanong ninyo, yes po. Students will struggle with writing if they are still struggling readers.
Thank you so much, Brother Ricky. The last question is from Miss Gloria Cabrera. Some teachers assign writing tasks to students, but fail to provide them with comprehensive feedback. Could no feedback on students' writing lead to this kind of problems?
Yes, ma'am. Ito yung a lot of research and surveys that we did, hindi siniseryoso ng mga bata ang pagsusulat kasi na-realize nila na hindi naman talaga binabasa ng teacher kasi nga wala nga naman. So, ang sinasabi ko palagi sa mga teachers, bakit nyo pinapasulat ng pagkahaba-haba na wala na pala kayong time magbasa? So, kung wala pala kayong time magbasa sa ginagawa ng mga bata, kahit man lang maglagay lang kayo ng notes dyan, huwag niyong pahabain. So I highly suggest nga yung eye chart na controlled. So come up with controlled writing or structured writing, like using the eye chart. Controlled po yun. Sabi mo lang, come up with 3 questions. Doon ka sa use this writing format sa graphic organizer. Yun lang po. So structured lang po. Pag binasa mo, alam mo lang kung ano babasahin. So that's true. A lot of teachers require students to do a lot of writing. Pahabaan pa nga, Diyos ko Lord. Pasensya ha, dibaan din po kasi ako sa ganyang activity. It just so happened magkaiba lang talaga. I love to write. But I had a lot of my classmates na actually pinagkakitaan ko po yan ng bata. Sorry po, nag-aamin na po tayo ng mga kasalanan ngayon. Nung high school ako, tsaka pagdating sa college, paggawa ng mga term papers, nako, pinagkakitaan ko po talaga yan. Kahit pa nung ako'y tuturo na nun dati, tuturo na ako, pinagkakitaan ko ang paggagawa ng mga research. because it was easy for me to write and I have all those strategies. Yung mga binigay ko yung strategies are my strategies that I do for, yan po yung mga ginagawa ko as a writer. Kasi hindi po mga tinuturo kasi I cannot teach other strategies that I have not, proven to be effective. So these strategies that I provided you with are effective for me and for those I taught how to write. So tama po, ma'am. I would go for a more purposive at saka concrete of writing, hindi yung pahabaan. Kasi minsan ang feeling ng mga bata, sige, sulat lang ako ng sulat, pahabaan lang pala dito eh. Kahit walang kwentang susulat ko dito, ang tinitingnan naman ng teacher ito ay pahabaan eh. Kung maikli, actually yun po nangyari sa akin nung high school. Nakipag-away ako sa teacher ko noon sa araling panlipunan ko dahil ang baba ng aking sinulat na essay. Kasi nga, I came up with 3 paragraphs lang. Siguro 1 page lang yon. Tapos yung mga classmates ko, pagkakapal-kapal. Pero yung sa akin, concise, direct to the point. Tapos sabi ko, ito po ay galing talaga sa research ko. Yung mga classmates mo, copy and paste lang sa kung saan. Tapos siya ba mga malaking grado. Sige, tingnan nyo po. Kasi alam ko po kung paano nila ginawa yon. Tapos, syempre, dahil nakipag-away ako sa teacher, mababa ang grado ko pa rin. So, ako nag-adjust. Ganun pala ang labanan ngayon, pahabahan kahit walang kwenta. O di yung ginawa ko. A lot of students adjust to the nonsensical demands of art. I would like to say it's nonsensical because we have to admit as teachers, if we have more than 20 students, it is difficult for us to read individually the writing activity of our students. Okay? So, kaya nga, kung makita yung strategy ko, hindi ko kailangan basahin. Nagpapashare ako sa mga bata. Ang ginagawa ko, those who have shared, hindi ko na kailangan graduin kasi magbigay na ako ng comment. Tapos yung mga susunod, pagtatawag naman ako. By sharing, nalalaman ng mga bata na talagang I am listening to what they have read. I would rather ask them to read what they have written than me reading it all the time. Sayang po talaga ang oras. At alam po natin na hindi lang isang section ang hawak natin. Medyo pa, maraming pang section. So, patay na po si teacher. So, I would suggest that we structure 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, simple sentences, ang susulat ng mga bata, the better, and then sharing it. Para malalaman ng mga bata na, hindi makikinig talaga si teacher. Gagawin ko to kasi baka akong matawag. Yun nga lang po, may mga teacher po, tinatawag lang nila, alam nila kung sino magaling magsulat. So, feeling ng mga bata, di ako magsusulat ng maayos, kaya alam ko naman, di ako tatawagin ng teacher dahil ayaw niya akong i-correct dahil mapapagod naman siya. Hindi pwede. Alright, thank you very much.
That's all the question we have for No Brother Ricky. Of course, we proceed to your final reminders for our viewers.
All right, for just, some statements I would like to leave you with for conclusions and implications. Written expression is one of the most challenging tests for children to learn. It is one of the most, I tell you, writing in fact is one of the most demanding of all macro skills. All right? But then again, you don't have to tell your students that it's difficult. Kasi sabihin lang, mahirap pala, ba't yung pinapagawa sa amin? Kung nahirapan nga, tapos ibibigay nyo sa amin, you expect us to easily be able to write? Wag ganun. So dapat may strategies. It's difficult, but it doesn't mean that we have to make things difficult for us. The best teacher, the best writing teacher, or the best teacher in the whole world are those who make the most difficult task, the most difficult subject easy for students to do. All right. So students who experience difficulties in acquiring fluent and efficient writing skills may struggle to generate ideas, construct meaning sentences, sequence, organize their ideas into paragraphs, and use grammar appropriately. And these students may also have difficulty with handwriting, punctuation, spelling. Furthermore, writing requires knowledge of the genre, text cohesion and coherence, and a sense of audience. Meaning, dapat nagbabasa na sila. Kasi hindi nila malalaman ng mga different genre and cohesion and coherence if they have not encountered that in their reading activities. So, if there's few opportunities for students to learn to read, therefore, mahirapan din sila sa writing. Okay? Any weaknesses in oral language expression are likely to transfer to written work. So, hindi lang po ang reading po. Kung ang mga bata din po ay kagaya ng strategy natin, are not able to express their ideas, do you think they can express their ideas also in written? If they cannot express their ideas in an organized way, in oral form, do you expect them to be able to do that in written form? mahirap din. Mahirapan talaga. Mas mahirap nga yun mag-organize sa writing. Eh. To transfer to written work, as it is very rare for someone to be able to write material. They are unable to say, unable to write concepts that are still not clear to them. All right. Finally, to answer those, to have a summary of what we're supposed to do, it should be explicit instruction of writing component skills, the ones that I've discussed, oral, link it to reading, link it to um, uh, using graphic organizers, likely to lead to more effective instruction. So kung tuturo lang talaga doon natin, we focus on writing and how it's done, then kids and our students will learn how to write. When all of the component skills are fluent, written language with still skills, comprehension and expression should be a reflection of a student's ability to use spoken language. Meaning, if students become good writers, we will now concretely see how well they have learned the things that they're supposed to learn in the lesson. So let us make writing as part of our modules that we make for the distance education and part of our online materials. With that, thank you very much, and I hope to see you on tomorrow. I still have a topic on tomorrow, but it's more of my personal experience, how I prepare for my presentation. So, Sarah, paano ka nag-prepare for your presentation? So, bukas ko ituturo sa inyo paano ako maggawa ng presentation. That is from my research to writing my handouts to representing my handouts with a PowerPoint presentation, and how do I present it orally. Napapractice muna ako nun. And then, so yung four stages na yan, how I do it. So baka makatulong po sa inyo mga teachers out there how you prepare for your online classes. And then on Friday, I'll be talking about study habits, a continuation of my topic today, that if our students have poor reading skills and writing skills, it will also come out in their poor study habits. And I'll see you tomorrow and on Friday for a more, experience-based sharing of interventions, learning interventions for our students. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
There we have it. On behalf of Evolve Group Incorporated, I would like to thank you, Brother Ricky, for being our speaker this afternoon, for giving our viewers a very insightful, inspiring, and comprehensive learning session. It is an honor to have you with us, Brother Ricky. And of course, our Kawibol viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat. See you all tomorrow. Goodbye.